So it's been about 1 year since we saw the outrageous criminal actions transpire on October 7th. And regardless of what your stance is on this issue, I say this because there were clearly innocent lives that were taken during that crisis. And no objective, regardless of how moral it may seem, justifies the taking of innocent lives. That's the fundamental standpoint of a human rights activist or any sane, rational person that values humanity. You can't take on the life of innocence. And of course, there were innocent people that died during that crisis. There were innocent people, whether they were children, whether they were people that just happened to be on that land, whether they were foreigners, or whether they were Israelis that have had nothing to do with the actions of their ancestors or the government of that country that were murdered. And my heart goes out to those people. And if you're going to play the argument that no one is innocent, then you yourself become complicit because you yourself are part of the country that has a government that has committed some of the most outrageous acts, particularly if you're in the United States or in a Western country. Have a look at the amount of unjustified wars that have been started by the United States, whether it was Vietnam, Grenada, Nicaragua, Panama. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of countries, and they've committed far greater violence on innocent lives than probably any country in the world, the United States namely. The idea that the citizens of that country are responsible for the actions of their government, even though many of them were not in support of that, is collective justice. And you cannot advocate for that kind of justice because it leads to logical insanity. That is the antithesis of what we call human rights. And any person that truly understands this principle cannot be advocating for violence on innocent civilians. And this is the problem, because here's the thing. Yes, what transpired on October 7th was inhumane, it was unjust. But let me ask you this earnestly. If your family was butchered, was murdered, your friends, your loved ones were killed, was slaughtered by a group of people, understandably, many of you, I would argue the majority of you, would probably want justice, would want those individuals that perpetrated that violence to be brought to justice. The real question, though, is whether you are willing to hunt every single person that is associated to those violent individuals, to go into a country that happens to be the same country where many innocent peoples are, and drop bombs on everyone indiscriminately because you're trying to take out the bad guys, to drop bombs on homes and make the argument that they are human shields, that these countries are harboring bad people, therefore it's justified for me to wipe out the innocent lives. And even though your intention may not be to kill innocent people, and I would argue that that is the case, the fact of the matter is you're still responsible. If you are trying to kill a bad person and you take an innocent life in the process, you are now responsible. And now you owe restitution. And this is what we are seeing time and time again. And the real question, and this is something that I find very disturbing, because I think if we were all honestly to ask ourselves, if the Israeli government was in a situation where in the Gaza Strip, it was full of Israelis, the predominant amount of people there were Israelis, and there were all these good people that happened to be amongst the bad people, along with Hamas, do you believe the Israeli government would apply the same kind of strategy? Do you think it would be indiscriminately bombing? And I say indiscriminately because there are a lot of innocent people that are dying. I mean, I made a video about 7 or 8 months ago, and I think the death toll, and this was coming from many of the human rights organizations, was well over 30,000 innocent people. And this is a long time ago. I'm sure it's risen since then. Do you think the Israeli government would be willing to take out innocent lives in order to achieve this greater good? Innocent lives of its own people? And there lies your answer to what's going on right now. It seems clear to me that the Israeli government does not value all life the same. Of course, it's making the argument that they feel horrible, that they have been made to do these atrocities that they are committing. like there is no choice when there is always a choice. And of course, they make these subjectivist arguments. They pull up these figures out of their ass, the same figures that the United States government has done many times, when it launched its war campaigns by saying that we have these smart bombs or we have these tactics that bring about a very minimal amount of collateral damage, and only a few innocent people have had their lives taken, and that's unavoidable in warfare. But the reality is, you should not be taking any innocent lives. If the only way for you to eradicate those that are responsible for the outrageous crimes that transpired is to take innocent lives, now this is the uncomfortable truth. You don't do it. If you do, you become a tyrant. You become an inhumane war criminal. This is the argument of every tyrant, every sociopath that has ever lived. This is at the antithesis of what we call human rights. That it's necessary, that it's for the greater good. We get to kill innocent lives. It's warfare. Once you subscribe to that way of thinking, you can justify anything. You can commit 1,001 genocides because you had a genocide committed upon you. Justice is about bringing individuals that have committed harm to justice. But going out and eradicating a bunch of people because they're somehow connected to the people that you're trying to take out, regardless of what your viewpoint may be on the history of what has transpired, it is fundamentally, unequivocally, definitively evil. And you subscribe to that way of thinking only when you don't believe in human rights, you're a sociopath, or you just consider yourself to be better than those people that are suffering because of your actions. And this is at the heart of what is going on